strategy followed actually to clear exam to get one of the very good rank in India, and is from Kerala state. So if you have any questions, we can ask later part. First we will explain the strategy and his approach and the book list, whatever you prepared. Later part you can interact with him also. Okay, all the best.
Thankfully everyone's giving it next year. So I've been told by sir that your batch has just begun, sir? So you are in your early stages of preparation. Now this is the most crucial phase of your preparation, let me tell you this. Because in a few months time you will have your routine, you will have a direction, you will know where you are headed. This is where you lie the, you are going to lay the foundations of your prep. This first 1 or 2 months that you get. Can I just have a volunteer? Yeah, sir, can you tell me what have you done so far in terms of how you gone about your preparation?
I've just started reading NCRTs basically, and then everyday revision of what is happening in the class.
Okay, what's happening? What's being taught?
What's being taught in the class, and the newspapers strictly every day and making notes of it.
Okay.
And referring to a few magazines like Prajavita Darpan, Yojana and all.
I'm on this. You.
Pretty much the same thing, and some of these PT 365 that have happened for the last year,
Okay.
just revising that to have a good. Some of my concepts are clearer, and I have some context to the things that are happening now.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else wants to? Somebody who's done something different. How many of you have done nothing? Please, honestly, raise your hands. Great. More hands, please. Done nothing. Great. Okay. Fine. So, let me just tell you what I had to give 2 attempts to clear this exam. First attempt was now, in today's parlance, what we call epic fail. I cleared the prelims in my first attempt, but after that I knew that I would not be clearing mains because I was not focused in my approach. I read a lot of unwanted things from a lot of unwanted places. I tried to develop my knowledge. As I was discussing with sir, he was telling me that a lot of students try to become PhD scholars in certain subjects that they like. I tried to be a PhD scholar in the Constitution and I failed miserably. Avoid making those mistakes. Another very important basic question I want to ask, which I forgot. How many of you downloaded the syllabus? How many of you have the syllabus printed out? Okay. Now this is. Let me make a confession. I never did this till I started preparing in December 2014. First time I saw the entire syllabus was in February 2016. So now you know why I didn't clear my first attempt. And I cleared it. I was a miserable failure. I was 50 marks short of the cutoff. And second attempt, luckily things worked out. So I'm not saying because I downloaded the syllabus and I got through this, not the claim, but it's going to be very difficult for you to clear the exam if you don't know where you are headed. The syllabus is your guide. You must ensure that you have the syllabus in the first place. So people who have not downloaded the syllabus, who have not taken a printout, people who are comfortable in looking at the syllabus in an online format, great. If you can have it ready for your reference every single time you go through a topic, then I think that's the most important thing that you should do. First thing, before reading Lakshmikant, before reading any other book, please read the syllabus 3-4 times over. Because I'll tell you why this works. Once you know what are the different topics in the syllabus, the moment you start reading something, be it GS, be it your optional syllabus, be it newspapers, you will start linking the syllabus with whatever you're reading. And you will understand, oh, maybe this is not important, maybe this is important. For example, you see a news item like X politician said X thing about Y politician. Okay. Very difficult to connect that with the syllabus, right? It's just a political controversy. That's it. You maybe read the headline so that you are aware of something like that, but you can just move on. But suppose there's a policy question that comes, then you will know exactly where to go. This can come in something happening on the metro. Some city is going on expanding or introducing a metro rail system. You will know, okay, maybe some question might come related with transport policy, infrastructure, GS3. This could be a possible question, GS3. These things start coming to your mind only when you start reading the syllabus. And when you know that, okay, you know each line of the syllabus. I'm not saying somebody asks you the syllabus, you can reproduce it. But the moment you see a news item, you will know how many different, okay, I can link this to GS2, I can link this to GS1, GS3, I can also link this to ethics, you know. Some corruption scandal can be linked to ethics and you can write examples in your paper. Yeah, so this is the first and fundamental rule. Please don't make the same mistake I did and don't wait for 14 or 15 months to figure out that, you know, boss, there is a syllabus and I need to follow that. And that's like the first and most, most important suggestion that I have to give you. Please ensure that you get the syllabus ready with you. That's about syllabus. Now, how many of you have chosen your optional subjects? Almost everyone. So people who have not chosen your optional subjects, please ensure that you choose it as soon as possible. Because optional subject is going to be the most important of all the different papers that you will be writing, because there are 2 papers and this is where people score a lot of marks. This is where there is a huge variation between the people who get into the top 100 and people who don't make it to the top 100. So this is very important. Please choose your optional and please dedicate disproportionate resources, both in terms of your time, your energy, to your optional paper. There's no point in becoming a scholar in GS papers because the questions that come these days are very dynamic. You can predict certain questions if there are some hot current affairs issues. You can maybe predict, okay, this question may come, this question may not come. But otherwise, there's no point in studying every NCERT, reading every NCERT 5-6 times and feeling very good about it. Hardly any questions come directly from NCERTs these days. Yes, they take a topic from NCERT and then they ask an application level question. But this does not mean that you have to read NCERT 5-6 times. That application is not there in the NCERT. That application will be there in your brain. Like, how do you understand something in the NCERT? What is your takeaway from that? How can you apply it to a different context? This is what is being tested. So don't waste too much time reading a lot of GS stuff. Do develop a basic understanding of everything in the syllabus. If NCERT helps you, if the coaching setup material helps you, whatever material you can get hold of, but keep your material list to a minimum and do your GS. In optional subject, you have to follow your own strategies. I'm obviously not an expert in every I only know one optional. If somebody needs, so my optional was political science and international relations. Somebody has specific questions on that, I'll be happy to take it later in the Q&A. But and I dedicated a disproportionate amount of time for my optionals, which helped me score decent marks in my optional also. In terms of political science, my marks, I mean, I'm still 30 marks away from the topper, but compared to other optional subjects, my marks are still very high. So that's about optional. So please make sure that you choose your optional as soon as possible, those who not, and those who have, again, start with the syllabus, understand the syllabus, understand the requirements of your optional. Please talk to people who cracked with your optionals, right, who've done really well with your optionals. Have that conversation right at the start. Reach out to people. I think everyone's very receptive these days. You have social media, you have email, you can reach out to people. People do respond to your queries. Make sure that you have an informed, your strategy is informed by what is relevant to the paper. The third thing that I want to tell you as the first rule is please go through the previous year's question papers, last 3 or 4 years, so that you can at least understand what are the kind of questions that are coming. This also I didn't do in my first attempt. So I had no idea what sort of questions are going to come for the mains examination. I did all this for prelims and I cleared prelims, but not for my mains. So especially GS, please go through the question papers, last 4-5 years at least. Not beyond that, because patterns changed recently, it's become very dynamic. So please ensure that you go back home and then check out the last 4 or 5 years papers so that you understand, okay, this is how questions are coming. These are the basic, 3 basic things. Syllabus for GS, choosing your optional and dedicating disproportionate amount of time for that, and thirdly, previous year's questions so you know what you're preparing for. Now, I'll just quickly run through what I did what I did for my GS. I mean all the 4 GS papers, essay, and also in brief what I did for my political science. But I will just say that as I don't know how let me try and make it more relevant to everyone what I did in political. So I just spend 1 or 2 minutes there. But let me just try and tell you what I did in all the 4 GS papers and also the essay paper. So during my first attempt, like I told you, I read a lot of things from a lot of places, and it was a waste of time. I didn't have any idea about the syllabus. I didn't have any idea about the previous year's question papers, and I was pretty blank when I went to do the examination. Now I did reasonably well in GS1 and GS3. GS2 I thought, oh, my optional paper, I'm supposed to be an expert, so I'll do really well there. Ethics I tried to study. Ethics I wrote few tests. I took a test series. I wrote the tests. I did some answer writing practice, and I thought I'm set. Oh, but I did reasonably well in GS1 and GS3. For GS2 my score was 69. This is the paper with my optionals. 69. For ethics, the paper I did answer writing, blah blah blah. I scored 73. Now these are disastrous scores. Now with these scores, very difficult for you to make it. I also practiced writing essays, like 1 essay a week, sometimes 2 essays a week after my prelims. So I think I'd taken some 15 to 20 essay tests, full-length essay tests before writing my first mains. And in essay I scored only 108. So clearly there was something horribly wrong that I was doing through the course of my preparation. I didn't analyze, the mistake I did in my first attempt was I was not analyzing where I was going wrong. I was just taking the feedback and I was moving on to the next test instead of sitting with the feedback, analyzing where I'm going wrong and all that. So after the results came, I had to analyze what was going wrong. I mean, very bad result. I was in Delhi at the time. I had run out of money. I was working for a couple of years before I did all this. So I had run out of money. Then I had to again ask for my parents for some money. So all these were not very comfortable. So I thought, okay, I'll give it one more shot. I can't live this life like this forever. I have to do something productive with my life. Preparing for this examination, trust me, is not the best thing you want to do in your life. There's much more to life than, so get this through with first attempt, second attempt, max. But don't even think about your second attempt now, first attempt. You will crack it in the first attempt. That should be your attitude. I didn't have this attitude in the first attempt. I was like, okay, I'll clear prelims this time. Second attempt, I'll clear. I ended up clearing the second attempt. That's a different story, but not a strategy you can rely on. Right. In terms of GS, I realized where I was going wrong. I finally went through the question papers and realized, okay, everything is very dynamic. Nothing is directly being asked from NCRTs. The way I read newspaper has to change. So in my first attempt, when I read an editorial, the Hindu has wonderful editorials. People who like reading Hindus find Hindus, the editorials, the lead articles and all that wonderful. So I used to read the Hindu editorials very deeply, trying to uncover the hidden meanings, blah blah blah. Spend 2-3 hours doing that. Then discussing it with my friends, having extended debates. I don't know, 1 hour I'll read editorial, 2 hours I'll have a debate with my friends. Wasted a lot of time. I did develop a lot of perspectives, knowledge and all that. But this examination is not about satisfying your ego. This examination is about writing those 20 questions in GS paper. Not about, it doesn't matter if you don't have any knowledge in a lot of areas where you think your peers have knowledge. After reading newspaper, this guy is very solid, man. I can't really, they're answering all questions in class, you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing in life? Don't worry about all these things. Just make sure that you cover the syllabus in a basic way so that you understand, okay, if there's a topic, at least 1 or 2 lines about that topic. That's the only thing you can do. And when you read newspapers, instead of trying to develop an in-depth understanding of articles, think, okay, what if a question comes from this topic, what will I write? That is the only thing you need to think about. Link your syllabus with the newspaper reading. That's what you need to do. Instead of trying to develop your own nuance, perspective and all that, spending way too much time. Each time you read a newspaper article, please think, okay, if a question comes from this topic, what will I write? Do I have stuff to write? And questions are not going to come from every single topic. Here is where the gut feel matters. My gut feel may be different from yours. You might have, so I'll give you a couple of examples. from this year's question papers. The Delhi issue was Delhi versus central government issue was very prominent last year. Yes, anybody who's read the newspapers? Anybody remember reading the Delhi issue, Delhi versus center controversy? No? Okay. So
The elections, right?
no, not the elections. So that there were a lot of controversies that Delhi government was blaming that central government is not allowing Delhi government to work well.
Yeah.
That issue, right? Now, I thought this is a hot topic. A question might come from this topic. I just thought when I read the newspaper, because this kept on coming, right? Day after day there was analysis, this, that, blah, blah. So I thought, okay, maybe this is very important. What I did was, I tried to figure out so I did 10 minutes of Google search based on this topic. I thought this question might come. My gut feeling is this question might come. Does anybody here watch John Oliver's show last week tonight? Oh my goodness, look at the enthusiasm. So in one of the shows, I watch that regularly. In one of John Oliver's shows, there was a show on Washington DC. How Washington DC, has anybody seen that? You have seen that show? I mean, that episode, Washington DC, how Washington DC is different from other places in India. So that show basically told me that Washington DC is different from other states. I mean, I don't know if Washington DC is a full-fledged state, but there are so many restrictions in terms of the laws they can pass, in terms of the resources that they can get and all that. So I thought, so when this issue of Delhi came, I thought, there's something similar happening with Washington DC also. So I just thought. Then what I did was, I did a basic Google search and tried to find out what the status of other capital territories in the world was. I typed Canberra, Australia. Let me see what Canberra is to Australia. Australian Capital Territory has a special status. It also has certain restrictions in terms of what the laws they can pass. I searched Islamabad, our blood brothers. Islamabad capital region is only one of two union territories of Pakistan. I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, even there is a special status, right? So I'm like, then I searched Istanbul. Istanbul was perfect. There's nothing, just like another city. So I realized that there are places, I mean, capital cities are always of strategic importance. So the central government will always have certain vested interests to ensure that the capital region is closely guarded. Their influence is more there. So I wrote this in my paper that Australian Capital Territory has a special status. The question was, how does the present Delhi center relationship affect cooperative federalism or something like that? I don't remember. I said that yes, the present conflict that is happening does not really bode well for the larger plan of cooperative federalism, but capital territories being of a special status where center has greater power, this is not a concept only in India. This is there in Australia, this is there in Pakistan. So this is something that is an international best practice. So I wrote something along these lines. This one line gives me an extra mark compared to, may have given me an extra mark. Again, this is all assumption, right? This is all, now if I didn't crack this exam, I would not be standing here saying all this, right? So this is all what I'm thinking may have gone right for me. I don't know if this is what worked, but so this is one question. Second, Article 370. Last year was a topic of huge debate. Kashmir issue. I mean, certain sections demanding things like repealing the Article 370. Some people saying we want more autonomy, etc., etc. It was a huge issue last year. I thought maybe a question will come from here. So I listened to a speech by Omar Abdullah on Article 370. I heard a few things that he said, few things that I actually did not know. For example, does anybody here know that you can't purchase land in Jammu and Kashmir?
Yes.
And how many of you know that it is because of Article 370? Raise a show of hands, please. It has got nothing to do with Article 370. You can't, I mean, it's got nothing, I mean, you cannot buy land in Jammu and Kashmir not because of Article 370, it's because of a state subject law, which was passed during the time of the Maharaja, not even present dispensation, right? So it has nothing to do with, so this is a problem with, I just wrote that, you know, there are so many misconceptions surrounding Article 371. I wrote an example like this. May have scored a brownie point there, I don't know. Because you have to keep these things in mind when you the idea of saying all this is I had predicted some question. Another question I predicted in GS was that women's movement and independence, women's contribution towards independent movement, something like this. This topic, everybody was saying for a long time, this will come this year, it will come this year, it will come this year. All, I mean, if you are in the circle, they'll keep telling you, this year it will come, this year it will come. It never came in the last 2 or 3 years. I thought maybe this year it will come. I had prepared, so that helped me in answering that question. And then, so these are some of the things that I did. Every time I read this insurance policy that came, a national, the Fasal Bima Yojana, that's a major change from whatever was existing earlier. So it was very likely that questions on agriculture come every year. A major policy has come out this year. It is likely that a question will come. So I prepared that question. Just before entering the exam hall, I was looking at that question for GS3. Because I thought, okay, I should do my revision and be sure about this question, at least if not any other question. And that question came. So there is a method to this madness. There are questions that you can predict. Every single year there are questions you can predict. Especially, largely from policy related issues and issues of, not controversial issues, but hot topics. They could be controversial, but the questions will not be controversial, wherein you will have to say something extreme. Generally, questions don't come like that. So, whenever you read your newspapers, please ensure that you have not just your eyes but other senses are also open, so that you try and relate that to the syllabus and try and think of possible questions and try and think of the brownie points you will score if the questions will come. That's the most, I mean, the whole point of doing this exercise is to score that 1 mark extra, right? Because everybody who has made it to that stage of writing mains, they will have a few stop points for every question. Right, India's foreign policy, non-alignment, non-interference, etc. Stop points anybody can write. You have to bring in something, you have to bring certain points so that you stand out. At least if not your answer stands out, where that person wants to give you 1 extra mark. It is that 1 extra mark that you get for every question that ultimately decides the difference. But this is my assumption, by the way. So this is what I think it is. So this is something that you must think about when you read the newspapers. Don't just read it for the sake of reading it. Don't read it for the sake of being a PhD in that paper. Please read it only from the point of view of answering a question if a question comes. That is your task for the next 2 years. Your task is not to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. Your task is to be that answer writing machine who can crack this exam in just 1 attempt. That should be your target. So this is the thing that I want to say about newspaper reading to start off with. Now GS1, I think everybody knows what to do. When you study for prelims, a lot of GS1 gets taken care of. There's society and then there's world history, which is remaining. Don't go for high level prep. Please develop a basic understanding of historical events. I mean, you really can't go and study world history, largely modern world history is being asked. You can't go and study world history in 9 months. That's just not possible, right? And I don't know, many of you will start studying world history only after prelims because it's not there for the prelims, right? In 3 months, so you can't study world history. So only thing you need to do is develop a basic understanding of how the world works, how history has. I mean, what is French Revolution? Why was French Revolution important? Similarly, Industrial Revolution. There are few things that everyone studies. Just do that. Don't go for any advanced level of preparation. It will be a wild goose chase if you try to be a master in world history. Society, there are 2 NCERT books, that blue book and yellow book, 11th and 12th. Just study that. Other than that, society is things around you. They might pick a line from the NCERT and frame a question. That's the reason why that reading that NCERT can help, because you would have at least thought about that question. But yeah, but other than that, society is all about things happening around you. Again, current affairs is important. So GS1 everybody knows. GS2, Lakshmikant is our holy father. Lakshmikant, there are provisions that you have to study. If you quote a provision, that makes a difference between your answer. First time I wrote mains, I didn't quote provisions. This time I quoted provision, sub-provision, blah blah, everything. So in my essay paper, I wrote the topic I took was water disputes. I wrote the, so water disputes come in schedule, according to our schedule 7, is it schedule 7? The same list? So I quoted the number in that list. So that, I sound a bit intelligent. That's what I did. It doesn't matter, right? I don't remember that section now. So I was showing off to the examiner saying that, I know this clause also. You can do all these things, right? This makes you sound sharp. Your marks are now, for essay, your marks are not going to be decided by that clause that you quoted. But this just shows that you're clinical throughout. You are very focused in writing your essay or whatever. This works with GS. Quoting a clause will not get you marks, but it shows that you're very professional in terms of your answer writing. Similarly, for 370, the relevant provision of the Kashmir Constitution, which says that you can't amend you can't repeal Article 370 unless the Constituent Assembly of Kashmir decides. Constituent Assembly is gone. Now you have to, if you want to repeal Article 370, you need to reconstitute another Constituent Assembly of Kashmir, which you have to write these things. In GS2, newspaper reading is supremely important. Again, GS2 and GS3 is all about newspaper. They generally ask you questions from newspaper. Make sure that you do that well. And the risk of GS2 and GS3 is there's lots to study. You will get a lot of material from various coaching centers. If you want to be a collector of materials, GS2 and GS3 is your paradise. You can get as much of stuff that you want. Please get hold of some basic things and study. You only need to know the basic material so that when you start answering a question, you can give a good introduction, good conclusion. This is the constitutional provision, things like that. Otherwise, it is all about your perspective. How do you bring in your perspective? How do you analyze? GS papers nowadays are analytical, very, very analytical. So, how do you analyze a particular issue? That is basically what's being tested. Analysis will not be provided by. They will provide their own analysis, but that analysis is there with everyone else, right? Then what is your analysis? So this is something you have to do. Get only basic material, and then link it with your syllabus, and then try to develop your own perspective. That is GS2 and GS3. Now the main paper, the main two papers, ethics and ethics and essay. Now ethics is, I can't emphasize more how important ethics is. It's a it's that one paper that turns things around for you. If you don't do well, then your rank is going to come down, or you may not make it to the list. If you do well, it's not that your rank will shoot up, but you will be in the race for that, because everybody who makes it to the list, generally most people do well in ethics. You will hardly find people who have not done well in ethics. And preparing for ethics, there is not, there is a prescribed syllabus for ethics, but then there aren't prescribed books as such. Like for quality, there's Lakshmikant. There aren't many books available. So here are a list of things that I think you must do, or you can do for ethics. Has anyone seen ethics question papers? Just like all the other questions. So first question paper maybe you should see is ethics. You've not seen the question papers, I don't know how, what sense I'll make to you now. But ethics is very important. There are two sections in ethics. One, they ask you things like what is the meaning of objectivity? How does that apply for a civil servant? What is the difference between neutrality and impartiality? How does that work in the real world? How do ethics drive decision making? How are personal and professional decisions different? Such basic questions they'll ask. Here it's all about how creative you are, right? How more creative you are from the other person. How can you? This is a lot of. In engineering, we used to call papers where we can guess, like where we don't have to write technical stuff, where we just use whatever creativity that we have. It's like that. But there's a method to the madness. Here also. You are going to the exam hall and seeing the word objectivity for the first time. You will have to think of a definition, write that down, think of an example, write that down. By that time, you may have consumed enough time for writing 2 questions. So what you have to do now, for the next 9 months or whatever time that you have in meeting, you have to think of all such possible words: objectivity, neutrality, impartiality, integrity. All these words are available in, the coaching center will give you material, I think it will be there. or there is this thing called ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission. There is a report on ethics in governance. You will get to know about all this as you go along. There are a lot of words, like what are the qualities of a civil servant. These words are listed. You prepare your own definition, whatever the coaching center gives you. See, I'll tell you, there's one thing. Some definitions that experts give, they may not be as perfect as you think it is. You have to find out which definition works best for you. That's there. I mean, largely what you find on the internet is true, but then you have to figure out which definition works best for you, because it is based on the definition that you write that you will have to write an example. Because this paper is all about giving nice examples and telling them that you are the most ethical and honest and most amazing civil servant that you can be. Right? This is what it's about. So make sure that you feel whatever you are writing. This is the only paper where you need that human emotion. You have to bring that out. Where is your gut feel? Don't write something you don't believe in. You may not end up making a good example. You may not end up giving them good examples. So make sure that you have these standard definitions prepared beforehand. I had anticipated a question of difference between impartiality and neutrality. Only because I saw these two words together, and I was thinking, what is the difference between impartiality and neutrality? And if you ask me now, I don't remember what the definitions I prepared. I prepared those definitions and by hearted it. The moment the question came, I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord. I wrote what impartiality was. People who don't believe in God, people who semi-believe in God, you don't have to take these words. And this is for the general crowd. Largely an Indian crowd, we believe in lots of gods. So I knew exactly what I was going to write. I had the example ready, I had the definition ready. I wrote that question in less time than it was required. I had more time to spend in other questions. This is another question I anticipated. This is the first section. Second section is that of case studies. Here they'll give you a real life problem. You are working in a factory. That factory is polluting the river. You raise this issue, but your management is not supportive. They say, okay, turn a blind eye to this. You wish to take this up with law enforcement or designated authorities. But if you do that, you'll lose your job. You have an ailing mother. You have to take care of your sister has to get married, your brother. You have lots of problems. So there is basically a dilemma. What do you do? What will you do, sir?
There's nothing, sir. I have to simply work there.
You have to simply work there. Okay. Anybody with a different idea?
I will report that to NGO.
You will report that to NGO.
They will take care. I will ask them to not to involve me.
Another approach. Anybody else with a different approach?
Report it anonymously.
Anonymously. Okay. Whistleblower. Okay. Anybody else with different ideas?
Try to get an alternate solution rather than dumping it into the sea.
Will you go and clean the river?
No, get an alternate solution
Right.
rather you put it.
The company is not going to give a solution because the company cares only about profitability, and cleaning the river is not.
No, cleaning the river. I said like, rather than polluting the river, simply sediments or whatever we are going to.
That costs money, no? Who will do it? Will you do it?
Just try to get an idea of easy idea.
See, don't worry. Don't worry about any answer that you're giving. I'm just anybody, girls, somebody with.
Convince the management.
Management is not getting convinced, no? Management is not ready to listen to you. They only care about profitability. Anyone? Yes? No?
Public litigation.
PIL. Okay. These are all things that you have to write in the paper. So you will write, no, not these are too many examples. You will write 3-4 things like that. I will convince management. One option is I will not do anything, and then write that is the least option that I'm conscientious citizen. I can't not do anything. This is the most. You have to go. There is this famous statement by I think Edmund Burke or I'm forgetting David Hume or Edmund Burke. Evil happens not because not because there are evil people, but because good men do nothing. Something like this. So you quote that. There are these standard things that you by heart and then go and write. So I cannot just do anything. I have to do something. So you will list down 4 or 5 options and weigh the pros and cons, and then you will come up with the final answer. See that at the end of the day, you have to do something. You have to ensure that either convince the management to do this. That's the most. Yeah, somebody said I'll convince the management. That is a very rational approach. But then you have to write. If the management doesn't get convinced, going to the NGO. The problem with that approach is you are passing the buck to someone else, right? You're not. There is also an option, but then you can say, if I pass it on to the NGO, then I don't know if the NGO will take this issue to its logical conclusion. Again, whistleblower, there are other issues which you will study when you study about whistleblowing and all that. What are the pros and cons? So basically, you have to figure something out. If nothing works out, you will say the last thing that you will write is, oh, obviously I have to put this to the authorities. I'm skillful enough to find another job. This is not the only job in the world, right? I can find another job. Nobody thought of that possibility. Right, I'll find another job. They fire me, I'll find another job. I'll take help from my friends to look after my mom's health for a while and find another job. Nobody is going to check the factual accuracy of your statements that you will find help from your friend to take care of your mother. Examiners don't want to sit there and question, no, mother, you can't take help from your friend, that friend won't help you. Examiner will not check all this, right? You can write whatever you want to write. But at the end of the day, your solution has to be ethical. Your solution has to be pro people. You cannot, you can die trying if you have to stop the pollution of the industry. See, because people have not stopped such issues, we've had issues like Bhopal, right? You want a Bhopal in your hands. Is that something that you're comfortable with? That's what you need to think. So when this question came, I wrote about, so the question was, I had to advise that person who had this dilemma how to approach this question. So I wrote things like, you want to have a Bhopal in your hands, you're a skilled person, go find another job if it doesn't work out. But report this to the authorities, that's what you should do. This is my final recommendation, but yeah, I did consider that doing nothing option, weigh the pros and cons. This is how it works. Now, this is just one question. There are a lot of other questions, a lot of other details. Now, some people are inherently very, very creative and spontaneously very creative. You see a question like this, they have like 10, 12 ideas running all over their brains. They can also filter those 10, 12 ideas and get to the best 4 ideas in less than 30 seconds. There are people who can do this. People are really good, and those people end up scoring really well for ethics. Then there are people like me who are not very creative. I realized this, like first time I told you, my ethics was a big failure. I had only 73. So I realized that I had to make up for my lack of creativity with something else. So what I did was, I started doing answer writing practice and I started taking these mock tests. Unlike last time, I went through toppers papers, which whatever mock test I was taking, institutes generally upload the toppers scores on their website or they give it to you. Whatever material you get from the market, they give it to you. I went through those question papers and I realized, oh my goodness, these people are so creative. They're at a different level compared to me. There's so many different ideas. See, you can always borrow ideas, right? If you're not that creative, you can take their ideas. There are only so many case studies that will come. So scenarios will be more or less the same. Maybe the institution will be different. Instead of pollution, it will be something else. It might be corruption. So there are a lot of tools, RTI, public interest litigation, PIL. So when you read the ARC report, you will find things like integrity pact, false claims law. There are so many of these things. Okay, you will get to know all this when you study. I saw the toppers using these tools to answer these case studies well. So I also followed the same strategy. If I didn't have creativity, I should take their ideas. So by the end of, and I used to also refer to model answers which the institutes themselves provide. So towards the end, I knew if this case study comes, this will be my example, this will be my reason, this will be my prep was very mechanical because my creativity wasn't that high. But this worked for me, right? Because at the end of the day, only if you're the person sitting, 2 people whose copies have been checked right before yours, they also have the same ideas that I have, then I'm in trouble. But that generally doesn't happen. We also have our own element of creativity. I also brought that out. Whatever human emotions and things like that I could bring out, I brought that out. And I didn't write anything that was at variance with what I genuinely believed in. That's also there. So whatever standard format that I prepared was in line with my values that helped me frame examples and all in a good way. So, but you have to do this diligently. You can't just think that, okay, ethics, I don't have to prepare for ethics. Let's focus on GS3. whatever time you spend in GS2 and GS3, you have no clue what kind of question might come. Any topic from the newspaper can end up being important. So please ensure that you. But for ethics, there is a set strategy. You can actually prepare all these things. This is the only GS paper you can prepare for, other than maybe elements of GS1. But GS1 these days, I mean, they're asking why did 3 battles happen in Panipat? Not which battle happened in Panipat or what that battle was about. Why did the battles happen in Panipat? Hey. So, history books don't teach us that. Again, this is all about developing perspective. But here, you can actually prepare. Ethics is a paper you can prepare. You have to invest time and prepare. Yeah, this is about ethics. And essay. Again, a make or break paper. Very few toppers end up scoring badly for essay. There are people who scored 175 this year. I know somebody who scored 175 this year for essay. That's an outrageously high score now. Anybody can end up scoring that much if they also have a set strategy. You have to first of all you have to practice essay writing. Those 3 hours you have to sit and write 2 essays. 1.5 hours for each essay. Not like you have to, like first time when I wrote the first essay in 2 hours 15 minutes. Last 45 minutes I wrote the second essay. So the person would have slept off reading my first essay. Second essay there was nothing to read also. So he would have continued to sleep till the end of the whatever time that he had. Right. This time I wrote both essays in 1.5 hours. There was a bit of time management issue because first half hour you write down your points, like how do I go about writing this. You will make a rough structure and all that. Again, you will get all this when you start writing essays. Second essay when I wrote, instead of spending half an hour, I spent 45 minutes. So I had less time to write my essay. But still I had a plan, so I could stick to that plan. Unlike last time, I had 45 minutes to do the planning and the writing. So this is very important. You have to practice essay. Too early for practicing essay now. But maybe if you can write 1 essay test every month, then that will still be useful. So you will know, you will get a hang of things. And by the time you are done with your prelims, then you can start focusing on essays more. But please don't assume that you can go to the exam hall and then write your first 2 essays. You might have been the editor of your college magazine, school magazine. You may already be a contributor to the Hindu. There are people who take the exam who are already contributors to the Hindu. All that is fine, but please have the humility to understand that there are 14,000 people who are spending each day trying to be answer writing machines. So if you think that you can do this, you may well pull it off, but there is competition. Not because you are not good, but because there are other people who are just solely focusing on writing the best essay possible to get the best maximum amount of marks. That is where the difference is. Not about knowledge, not about your creativity, nice, flowery words. Just about getting those 150 or 160 marks. So yeah, don't ignore. This is my suggestion is please don't ignore these 2 papers, essay and ethics is very important. Now optional. Now my optional is political. Maybe if you have questions, I'll be happy to take it during the Q&A. Now I think we've gone through the length and breadth of the examination. Again, interview is another ball game, completely different ball game. It's too early for us to discuss interview. Let's clear mains first, and then we can think of interview and all that. So the next thing is I want to see, now you've joined a coaching institute. Please make sure that you take advantage of your coaching institute while you are here. Coaching institute can only provide you the resources, right? You want certain resources, they will give you the resources, that's it. You have to study on your own. Please make sure that you exploit these resources. Go to sir and don't go to sir to be sir teaches economics, right? Don't go to sir to be a master of economics, that's not your objective. Don't go and any news article you see, don't go and ask him questions. Please don't do that. But if there are some issues which you feel a question might come, just ask sir, if this question comes, what points can I write? do these kind of discussions. And also, in case you don't have material for X topic in the syllabus, then reach out to these people. Tell them, sir, I'm finding it difficult to study this particular topic. Can you suggest me a material? then whatever material that the institute provides, just study it blindly. Don't now go to the market and search for the best material. All this is a waste of time. I did all this in my first attempt. Second attempt, I had a list of materials. I didn't bother going anywhere else. To make use of your time here, one thing that sir was telling me was that once you are done with your 9 months or whatever here, generally what people do is people just go around getting materials from all the other coaching centers. They compare which is the best material. I don't know how you judge that in the first place. I never tried doing this. And then they make a list of a huge number of materials, and then they say, I will study this, I will study that. There's a huge plan, and this will be the best plan in the world. But the idea is not to have the best plans. The idea is to have the most clinical of executions, which this strategy is not really worthwhile. So when you are here, please take advantage of whatever you have here and do only relevant things. That's my suggestion. About current affairs. Current affairs, I've already told you. Link newspaper with the syllabus, anticipate questions. Now in terms of note making, when you read newspapers, we do have a tendency to take down important points. People who do not have subjects where questions directly come from current affairs for their optionals, like for me it's important. My option is political science. A lot of issues which are in the news come. A lot of people writing these articles are scholars we quote in our paper. So it was important for me to make notes. But I did this a lot for my other papers as well. For example, for GS also I made a lot of notes from the question paper. From the newspaper. Now, the objective of making notes is to ensure that you can revise them. Your notes are as good as you can revise them. Simple. First year also I had a lot of notes, but I didn't revise them. Second year also I had a lot of notes, but second year now I'm doing the proper prep, right? Now I know what the light is, I know the paths. So this time to my notes I will revise properly. I know exactly how to plan the days and all that. If you are making notes, please revise them on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever works for you. But if you don't revise, don't make notes. You're getting the Focus magazine, right? Study that. But it's always advisable to make at least some notes so that you know what you've read later. But again, no point if you don't revise. So this is the final thing I want to say. So make sure that don't read newspaper for 4 hours because you are writing a lot of notes. Right? Really doesn't work at the end of the day. So that's it. Now if you have any questions, I will take it.
You are encouraged to ask questions, please.
Ask any questions if you want.
You have some.
Preparation for prelims actually.
Prelims. Okay, so like I said, during my first attempt I read a lot of unwanted things, right? From here, there. So for culture and history, I made a set of notes, like I compiled everything from NIOS to NCRTs to, I could publish those notes myself. Nobody will buy because this is too much. So that's why I'm not publishing. Now, I did all that. I loved studying for prelims. I heard that this year's prelims were very nasty, but I think if I had written the prelims, I may have cleared it. Because I love studying for prelims. I have a knack of answering, just 4 questions, eliminate 2 options. Then there's one. Then there are 2 options. So sometimes I end up knowing, otherwise towards the end there are 10 questions where I know that it's either A or B. I list down those questions and then blindly go A, B. But it's 50-50 after that stage. Even if I get 4 or 5 questions right, then I'm breaking even, right? Or whatever, I'm not good at maths. Maths geniuses can figure out when you break even, when you do something like this. But so I used to like preparing for prelims a bit. So my prelims prep during the first year was very extensive. Like I covered NCRTs, I covered NIOS for art and culture, Shankar for this environment module, a lot of every standard book that you can imagine I studied in my first prelims. The catch here is nothing worked because you know that last 2 years before this, both prelims were current affairs heavy. First, not so much. Last year, though, it was pakka current affairs, right? Everything came from current affairs. So this prep didn't really help me. There is a certain amount of material that you have to study, certain number of mock tests that you have to take. So first time I took only 2 mock tests. I don't know how I cleared the first prelims. Only 2 mock tests. Both tests I had 80 and 88. And I ended up scoring 122 for my examination. I think I got really lucky. Second time, I revised most of the notes I made in the first attempt, but I also ended up taking some 30 mock tests. So while I was giving my second prelims, I knew exactly what my accuracy is. If I guess between two options, how likely am I to be correct? I done this analysis on an Excel sheet. So I like spending time doing such things. So I used to plot. Number 1, number 2, number 3 tests. How many questions did I attempt? Where did I go wrong? How many did I attempt between two options? How many did I do my gut feel? What is the accuracy of my gut feel? Then I took an average. Towards the end, I realized my gut feel is a lot of nonsense. So initially my gut feel had an accuracy of 60%. Then towards the end, it started becoming 20, 15, 0. So when your gut feel is 0, it means the gut feel is giving you negative marks, right? Your gut feel is 33%, then you break even. But your gut feel falls below that, then you're losing marks, right? So, but unfortunately, again, there is no standard strategy. Like I'm sure you've heard, this is very cliche. So because my gut feel wasn't working out, I left 4 or 5 questions in my second prelims. But if I had answered that, I would have got all 4 right. But it didn't matter because I had 147, which is 30 marks to play with. That really didn't matter. But by the second time, I was sure of what I was doing. First time, I think I got a little lucky because I have this knack of writing prelims. I can't say the same thing about mains, but prelims, I think I'm better at writing prelims than I'm at writing mains. So I got lucky the first time. But second time, I was more or less in a comfortable place because I had taken 30 mock tests, at least 30 mock tests. So I knew what my accuracy was. So in prelims, there is a crunch. You will find a basic list of books that you have to refer to. You will get it from the institute, you can get it from Topper's book list. Please ensure that the last 2 months before prelims, you sit and crunch those materials. Just don't think that the next prelims is going to be all this fundamental question, confusing type question. They might go back to current affairs. You have to do current affairs, you have to do your basic stuff. There is no letting up. Prelims, because this is the most important. In mains, if a question comes, you can write something and score 2 or 3 marks. In prelims, you either know or you don't know. Right? It's a 1 and 0 kind of a situation in prelims. So yeah, there is a crunch. So as broad as you can keep your prelims preparation, the better. But make sure that this broad preparation is done only for the last 2 months. Not that you just start. This is what I did. I prepared only for prelims during my first attempt. So by the time I wrote my mains, I was in no position to study political science, no position to study ethics, although I did a bit of both and I failed. So last 2 months, ensure that you, and prelims, whatever you study, again you will have to revise. Last 1 week, you studied all the books in the world, and your first revision is going to happen last 1 week, then I don't even know if you'll have the energy to go and write the exam. You'll get depressed doing this. I've seen people do this and I've seen people fail. So there's something that you have to guard against. Whatever you study, keep revising. That's very, very important. But otherwise, there's no set strategy. There are a certain number of books. There are your newspapers. You can't do without either. That's you had a question.
You are basically from an engineering background.
Yes.
What made you take up political science?
Political science. So I took political science because my first option is the Indian Foreign Service. That's my first choice. Anybody with IFS as their first? Okay. So that was my first choice. So it was natural that I take PSIR because IR gets covered. What are your options? Those who want to. Okay.
I'm deciding between eco and PSIR.
Okay.
Law.
Law. Oh, okay. Law is again a connected option because the paper 1 is connected. Economics, I don't know, but if you studied economics, it is.
Yeah.
Is it? Then if you studied a subject and if you're not a great engineer like me, you can very confidently take your. With my engineering progress, I knew for sure if I take engineering, then I either quit in the first attempt or maybe I'll write my 6 attempts and still not clear. So that's also another reason I had to choose another subject. Engineers will find this issue. Most engineers will find this issue. If I find an engineer who's taken this subject, I think I will quietly worship him outside. So yeah, that's the reason why I took.
So you want to know, like, suppose you are giving.
Don't call me sir. Please. Till May 31, I was also an aspirant. Because I got a lottery, now I'm standing here. So
So I want to know, if you are giving your first attempt in 2018 and you're starting right now and you don't know anything else, and how are you going to divide your schedule till prelims? Like, suppose we start studying now, then we start with, say, economics, then the things come into our mind is, oh, I have to study Hindu, oh, I'm writing in editorial, like I have to come.
But what are you studying in economics? Like,
no, like suppose the class, like
Oh, class.
know how to divide the schedule till prelims, like till for 3 months I'm going to complete this, then like how would we
Timetable.
thank you. Okay.
What is the approach?
So this is what I did. Both my attempts, last 2 months was focused on prelims. First attempt, I had no time management. So my strategy for my second attempt was, by the time I write 2 months before prelims, I would have covered most of my options, like 80 to 90% of my options. I ended up covering, I think, maybe 60-70% of what I thought had to be covered. After prelims, I realized that there's a completely different approach. There are a few more things that I could do. But till then, I didn't have this. Just because I saw a video, I got to know a little more stuff about my options. But I thought I'd covered some ground. So yeah, the ideal approach is you cover either your optional fully before 2 months before prelims, because you have enough time. You are ready next year. You have enough and more time to cover your optional fully before 2 months before prelims. Covering optional fully is not doing it once, doing it twice, at least twice, so that you start retaining things also. Because after your prelims, you should get into that answer writing mode. You have to join a test series. You have to start taking answers. Even if you haven't studied much of GS, you can still give GS test series. Because again, it's a very dynamic thing. You can answer GS questions. No, general studies generally, see, like they in the UPSC notification, they say any person with reasonable level of intelligence and education can write this exam. That is a pitch of UPSC. Although you all know who are the kind of people who crack the exam. There are people who mug up a lot of stuff and then go and somehow write, right? But the principle is valid. If you have a general understanding, you can still write questions. Right? You don't have to study that question for nanotechnology. You are a person who is generally aware. You can write a question on what is nanotechnology. You can write what is nanotechnology, what are the applications. At least one or two you can write. But you can't take your optional paper like this unless somebody with economics is taking economics. Maybe she can answer the questions that come better. Somebody with my, if I had to write a pol science test, I can't do justice to it if I don't study. So after your prelims, you have to get into that mode. So plan your time accordingly. Make sure you cover your optionals before 2 months before the prelims. The last 2 or 2.5 months, depending on how comfortable you are with prelims. You focus completely on prelims during the last 2.5 months. That's my suggestion. And don't spend too much time in GS.
Just kind of a follow up on that. Like, how do you figure out a day? Because you're here for about 5 hours. You get back and you study you revise what you've done, and then you start with the newspaper and you're going to take about 2 hours there. Then what else do you do in a day?
Like till Jan we have coaching, so every day we won't be getting caffeine, so we won't be getting much time in the evening to cover all the questions.
Your class is daily?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So can we cover entire syllabus?
See, my strategy was not to attend classes. So I used to bunk a lot of classes. That was my strategy. Again, wrong strategy. You know how well I did in the first attempt. So this is something you have to figure out. See, a reasonable 6-7 hours of work is enough. After 6 hours, 6 hours of work is enough. Newspapers and your basic revision, that's enough. But dedicate a time for option. How many hours of options you have to do? That's something that you have to figure out. But revising, how much time does it take to revise? You're not studying, no, you're only reading, right? How many of you are studying what's being taught in class? Like studying as in Article 32 means this kind of stuff. How many do this? You don't study, right? You read. If that's what is consuming so much time, I think you can do revision in half an hour, 1 hour max. Then you have 2 hours of newspaper, then 3 hours of optionals. Then you can watch John Oliver show. But again, see, okay, now this is something that worked for me. This is probably something that you may not be able to replicate. this is my personal thing. Let me, at the risk of sounding arrogant or unrealistic, let me tell you that I was not very fond of studying. I worked for 2 years after my engineering. So I got back at a time when I was not very inclined towards studying, sitting down somewhere and studying and all that. So this was a struggle throughout, like right from the time I started till till May 31, the results got out. Studying is not the most wonderful thing is not the thing that I find most enjoyment in. So I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos, and not YouTube, not songs and things like that, but documentaries like John Oliver's show, lot of documentaries, etc. So I thought maybe through this I'll gain a lot of gyan and I'll do well for my first attempt. Again, didn't work out. Now I told you about IR Tulu. I had studied this from a YouTube video. Justice Rohinton Nariman, you've heard of Justice Nariman? He's Farid Nariman's son.
Yeah.
He's the one who gave the Shreya Singhal verdict, that section 66A. Now, there was a talk by him on the 9th schedule. So IR Kolu basically deals with the 9th schedule. It is because I watched this video that I remembered, and so I knew the significance of. So in Lakshmikant, they don't give you the significance. Because I watched this video, I knew the significance. Similarly, I don't like reading Yojana and Kurukshetra. I read it once and I'm like, I'm never doing this ever again in my life. It was on, I think it was on federalism or something. In 2014 there was an issue and I could pause, never again. But there are people who genuinely enjoy reading Yojana. You have to figure out if you are a Yojana person or you are not a Yojana person. That is something that's one of the binaries, I think, in this world. So instead of Yojanas, I used to read, there are some news sites that I follow, Catch News, The Wire. I used to read lots of articles. First year I spent too much time doing all this. I didn't have time to spend on the syllabus. Now this is not something that you can afford. Because I took 2 years. Finally, for my second attempt, everything fell into place. This is something called luck. Right? Everything falls into place. There is this question on renewable energy. Will India be able to meet its renewable energy targets? 2015, I had read an article on how our nuclear targets, the whatever gigawatts that we had made, it is completely unrealistic because rest of the world has not added in the last 15 years what we are planning to do in the next 15 years. Our one country, what we are planning to do in the next 15 years, rest of the world put together has not done in the last 15 years. It seemed unrealistic, so I wrote that in my paper. This is one article I read 2 years back. And I remembered this article and I'd gone back to it before writing the exam. So I knew the exact figures, now I don't remember. I don't have a good memory when it comes to all these things, about numbers. But I have a good memory when it comes to what, if I watch a video once, I'll at least know. So that's why I watched John Oliver's show in 2015. When Delhi issue happened in 2016, it clicked. Okay, now I have to sort of figure this out. 9th schedule again. So this is my personal thing that helped. You have to find that one personal thing, whatever it is. So you have to spend some time for yourself. People crack this by studying for 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day. People also do this by studying only 6 hours a day. You have to figure out what works for you. But something, so my extra activities was basically watching YouTube videos and not watching random YouTube videos. Something that adds to my knowledge base and understanding of the world, that really helped me. Maybe YouTube videos and Catch News is not for you. You have to find what that is. Maybe swimming is your thing. That gives you the kind of energy and motivation to start studying again. That keeps you fresh. That you have to figure out. But this is not the end of the world. This is just an exam. Just an exam where after your mains, it's the lottery. Because every 2,000-3,000 people are really strong, man. I'm not any better than somebody who did not make it to the list, who had qualified for the interview. I'm not substantially better. I'm substantially luckier. You should also have the humility to accept that luck is a big factor in this exam. You've done all your preparation. You've done Rambo style preparation. You can, destroy any question that comes before you, but you still don't clear this exam. Another thing that I wanted me to tell you, you still don't clear this exam. You don't clear it in the first attempt. Obviously, everyone in this room will not crack the exam, right? You want me to say that? Everybody will crack the exam. You know that everyone's not going to crack this exam. If Few of us will walk away in 2 or 3 years. Few of us will walk away after 6 years, after exhausting all your attempts. Few of you who walked away will find much better things to do in life. This is not the best job in the world. There's no best job in the world, right? It's what suits you, whatever works for you. So have this humility to understand that luck is a major factor in this exam. All this random video watching that didn't help me in my first attempt. It helped me answer so many questions in mains this time. So many. I mean, I can keep telling you every question. I may have added 1 or 2 things from my video watching. Again, this is so. Please have the humility to understand that even if you put in your best, you may not end up cracking this exam. And you have to bid adieu when you have to, like, this is my time. Okay, I've done it. Now I think I should move on to something bigger and better. I'll tell you a story about somebody who is a very close friend of mine, who started preparing in 2013. I think he gave his first attempt in 2014. He gave it 2015. Sorry, 2013 he gave his first attempt. 2015, 14 and 15 he gave 2 more attempts. First time he cleared prelims. Second time and third time he didn't even clear prelims. Now he was a very smart person. Writing this exam for 3 years and not clearing the prelims in your last attempt is probably the worst feeling that you can have. You feel lost, you feel confused. All your friends have moved on to bigger and better things. Someone's done an MBA, someone's drawing a salary of 3 lakh rupees a month. You don't even have 30 rupees today. You have to ask your parents for your money, for money and all. This is where you hit rock bottom in life. I have not experienced this, luckily, but I know from my friends. Now this person, what he did was he was lost. He tried to find what else he can do, but he was interested in public affairs. He was interested in public policy, things like that. He decided to work he volunteered with the Delhi government, and he worked. He was working in the deputy CM's office. He was working for free. By the way, they don't pay. He was working there for free. He worked there for 1.5 years. I think he started in December 2015. 2015 was the last prelims he gave. December 2015 he started. In a month, he's going to Harvard Kennedy School. Beat that. He was directly involved in policy implementation. He was working with the Delhi government. He implemented a lot of policies. First, there was this Mohalla Sabha. Have you heard of Delhi government's Mohalla Sabha? He was into that. Then he was into some other education-related works. I mean, Delhi government is one government. He could have worked with any other government, right? Because he was in Delhi, he worked with Delhi government. Governments are always open to. There are chief ministers' fellowships in Maharashtra. It is there in Odisha. It's there in Kerala. A lot of places. So he did this. In 1.5 years, he toiled. He was working without a pay for again 1.5 years. Now he's 29, but he's going to Harvard Kennedy School, man. How many people go to Harvard Kennedy School for masters in public policy? Count the number. Hillary Clinton is going to be teaching him. Maybe. Apparently she's looking for a job and she's reached out to Harvard. And his batchmates are people with 10 IAS officers and IPS officers with 10, 15 years of experience. They're going to study with him in his course. So you can always find better things to do in life. This is where you have to see, you will leave this place in 1 year, 1.5 years, whatever. But make sure you're in touch with teachers, you're in touch with the director, you're in touch with people so that they can guide you. Not because you have doubting what is repo rate or reverse repo rate, not that kind of questions. But in general, in planning your career, in moving ahead in life and all that, maybe people will help you. So if you are in doubt, keep asking people and figure out. So this is one thing that I want. So my friend's story is like an amazing story. Civil services didn't work out, something better worked out for him. Acceptance ratio for Harvard, I think, is much lesser than civil. Maybe civil services at 4.5 lakh is a crazy number. So maybe maths might be civil services favor, but you know that 4.5 lakh is just a bogus number. I mean, the real competition is far less. So this you all know, right? The real crunch starts after the prelims, but even for prelims, I think there are 30, 40, 50,000 people who are really strong. But 4.5 lakh is that one number which you can quote after you clear to boost your ego, but the reality is different. Any other question?
Yes.
Could you share your experience about your interview?
Interview was, just like my mechanical engineering, in interview, so prior to this interview, I was also superstar in interviews. So when I was in college, I wanted to do MBA. So I wrote CAT. I didn't get calls from the IIM A, B or C, but I got calls from new IIMs. I got calls from MDI. People who are aware of Management Institute, they know these names. XLRI. So I went for all these interviews and I failed miserably. So interviews, I have a history with interviews. Then in 2014, last year when I was working, I gave an interview at SP Gen. Again, didn't work out. I'm not saying it didn't work out just because of the interview. Back in the day, they also used to look at your ACADS. Like, if you have 95 percentile in 10th and 12th, then you're a genius. If you have 88 like me, then you're not good enough for that institute. Also, it was a combination of ACADS plus the interview. But I have a history with interviews, right? So I gave a total of 20 mock interviews before giving my real interview. Because I knew that I would at least need 20 before I'm ready. So the first ever interview I gave was in Kerala. I came to before the main interview that I came to Delhi. I gave 2 really good interviews at Rahul's. When I was in Kerala, my first interview went like really well. So that the lady, the IAS officer who was my the chair of the board said, I don't even have a feedback to give you because you are so good. 2 years I've become a stud now. So I'm like, okay, great. The next interview I went, I was back to becoming the stud I was. They're like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Like, boss, you are all over the place. So I came back to Mother Earth and then figuring out what to do with the interview and all that. So it was a struggle. I gave, after the second interview, I gave 3 more epic failed interviews. Again, not working out. Those fears are coming back of how I messed up my earlier interviews. So I came to a friend here. He is in Bangalore. He's a good friend of mine. I knew him from my CAT coaching time. So he did. So nobody in this country would have prepared for interview like I did. I used to keep telling him, why am I doing so much? People are just going and giving the interviews like, like it's second nature for them, doing the interviews. So he used something called neuro-linguistic program. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. Anyone who's fascinated by TED Talks, there are a lot of, generally there are some talks on this issue. So it's basically visualization techniques, this, that, blah, blah, a lot of jargon. So I did all that with my cert to improve the way I present myself before the interview board. So it was a lot of hard work. Because I had this history with interview, I had to do a lot of hard work. By the time I came to Delhi, so I had given 12 interviews before coming to Delhi. In Delhi, I gave 8 interviews. By the time I reached Delhi, just before coming to Delhi, I probably gave the worst interview. And this interview was chaired by the same IAS officer who said that you had nothing to say because I was so good. She was like, boss, are you the same man? Like, what happened to you in 1 month? So this is after 1 month. She's like, what happened to you in 1 month? I was like, ma'am, I have a history with interviews. That interview was a rare exception, right? So what we used to do was after each interview, I used to call up my sir, my teacher. Interview happens for half an hour, 45 minutes. I used to analyze each interview, break down each interview for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. That last interview before coming to Delhi, there we had to spend 2.5 hours because that was a very bad interview. Now, so luckily I gave so many bad interviews. So I got better each time. I rectified some mistakes, some other weakness of my personality came out. But by the time I reached Delhi, by the time I was giving interviews at Rouse, I had settled down. My tension had gone a lot of. And the 2 interviews I gave at Rouse were very helpful because the feedback, we had a long feedback. I didn't have to go back and do that 1.5 hours feedback with my teacher. The feedback session I had here was like, that itself lasted 40-45 minutes. I had a free-wheeling discussion with the panelists. So I had done all this and I had become very confident. I'm standing outside Vinay Mittal sir's room. There is this 5 minutes that you spend in front of the room when the other person is inside. Now imagine the situation, the other person who's just gone in is very smart, got a nice tie, very well dressed, or in case, very nice sari, very good looking, and you are this short guy with curly hairs, and that you're standing there. You also have to speak to that guy and you know that guy is solid. He's already in the service, by the way. And you already know he's really good. You are trying to pretend as if nothing's bothering you. But your demons start coming back. So this happened. I got really tensed and worked up. None of the techniques that my sir taught me worked, right? To just calm myself down. But at the larger level, yes. I mean, whatever we did, that worked. Now, just to calm myself down, he taught me a few techniques. I'm like, oh, nothing's working now. So I go there with a lot of tension. Now, the questions that were posed to me were very simple, like very basic sort of questions. Questions, nothing on current affairs, because I had fallen, like I told you, I had fallen back on newspaper reading because I was selecting suits rather than reading newspapers, right? Selecting the color, I did a lot of detailing. Now, luckily, not one question on current affairs, none, zero. I had worked for a couple of NGOs in the education space. So he asked me, oh, what have you done for your, did you make a sustainable intervention? I said, for my first NGO, I was just working on, have you heard of MAD, Make a Difference? MAD is there in Bangalore. So I worked with Make a Difference. I said, with MAD I did, with MAD I only taught kids during the weekends, which was indirectly saying, no, I didn't do anything sustainable. It was just one exercise that I did for a year. But with the second NGO, that was when I was here in Bangalore, when I was working in Bangalore. I worked with this NGO called Need Based India. I helped improve the efficacy of a school dropout rehabilitation camp. I said all this. I knew that because I had something in education in my profile, questions could come on RTE. So I prepared. Next question was, tell me the key provisions of RTE. Thank you, sir, I prepared this question. But remember, I told you I was very tense. Because I was very tense, I didn't tell them one key provision, which was that 25% reservation for economically weaker sections, which you might know. He asked me, there is a provision like this, right? I said, yeah, yes, sir. I told him what the provision was. Then he said, but this provision is not getting implemented properly. I said, yes, sir. I read a report, but I had prepared on about that provision also. I told him this, that, and I told you about this friend who's going to Harvard, right? 3 weeks before the interview, I called him to figure out, boss, I have so many things in education, what are you doing then? Tell me what you're doing. I told them whatever he told me. So I said, sir, this is that, you have to. So he asked, why isn't it working? I said why it's not working. I also told him what is my solution. That was not my solution, that was what he was doing with the Delhi government. But I didn't claim that is my solution, but I said that, sir, but the solution can be found within the RTE, blah, 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 blah. I told him whatever he was saying. I said, presently Delhi government is doing X, Y, Z. Your government, sir, Delhi government is doing X, Y, Z. I did that. That was the only time I saw sparkle in the chairperson's eyes.
Got idea what exactly the strategy, and he is very honest and crystal clear. So generally people say read 16 hours a day, 17 hours a day. It is highly impractical. So focus on your classes, 4 to 5 hours. Go to home, spend 5 to 6 hours. That is more than sufficient, but it should be sustainable. And we can learn from different sources, not only the books. Don't be bookish. And he already told you people indirectly, we can take from multiple sources, like from movies also, from YouTube documentaries also, sources also, from articles also. So it's up to you what suits for you. Some people watch movies and they learn a lot. Some people read books, they learn a lot. It's up to you. So there is no direct, perfect strategy. Okay?
But only after you are done with your syllabus, huh?
Yes, that is most important.
Because you should understand the difference between the first and second attempt. I had covered the syllabus. That's probably the reason I knew where to apply what. Now, so yeah, that's one thing. So you like watching YouTube videos and you do only that without syllabus, good luck, my friends. You can join me like how I was in my person. Yeah. So I hope I didn't convey the wrong idea. That's what I'm stressing. Please, syllabus first, and then whatever it is that works for you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for coming and